This is it. I'm so excited. The whole reason I take part in this show is so I can get free medical advice. Gentlemen, after doing deep dives on cholesterol and ACVD, is that right? ASCVD. I forgot a letter in there. ASCVD.
It's all right.
I went and had a bunch of blood work done. I haven't gotten all of it back because apparently it takes a really long time to do a lipo-A.
LP(a).
That's the one.
I guess.
Test. Yeah, it's still coming back. But I did do my annual blood work, got that back, had a checkup with my doctor this past week, and I had some concerning news. Apparently, my LDL-C and my ApoB, right? That's what I was confusing. The LP(a), ApoB.
Apo-big B.
That's the one. Talk to my doctor. The ApoB and my LDL-C are higher than they should be. So, help me out here. Let's look at these. I know sometimes we have issues where we're talking about somebody else's numbers and we can't get more details from them. I'm right here. What do I need to do? Last year, my total cholesterol was 191. This year, it's 210. Last year, my LDL-C was 113 milligrams per deciliter. Now it's up to 153. I've been making positive changes. I've been in the gym. I've been working out. I'm tracking what I'm eating. What is going on?
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, this is tough. We're obviously not PCPs and cardiologists. And so I think what we can do for you is at least shed light on what some of those individuals might be thinking and how treatment is guided from this point. And then, I don't know, have an evidence-based conversation about it, but then also just, hey, Joe, this is what I've been reading and this is kind of what's making sense to me at this stage.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, leave you with the power to do as you please.
I will try.
Ask more questions, and that's all we can do. So I would say it might be helpful to start with so you're a PCP or you talk to your PCP about this. What happens? Are you going to be put on a statin? Are you going to be put on some other cholesterol lowering therapy? Given the totality of this and the other values that we have on your blood work.
Yeah.
You, based on age, based on blood pressure, other things, your ASCVD 10-year risk still would keep you below the cut point that would warrant therapy. That's not to say a doctor wouldn't start you on a statin or anything like that. But I think this is an important part to understand that because you're still young, even though your cholesterol is elevated, we're not going to put you on a statin. We're going to wait.
Okay.
You've made some lifestyle changes. I think we don't need to treat this aggressively. And I think that starting here is at least where you can see some of the controversy, some of maybe how medicine will change.
Yeah.
How different practitioners have already changed the way they're practicing because there is evidence to say that, hey, those numbers might look like something we want to treat. But the doctor who says, no, look, this is where you fall on the risk spectrum. We're going to wait. You've made a ton of positive changes in lifestyle. You eat well. You're exercising. Let's just continue to monitor. You're not afraid to get your blood work done. So just come back in.
Not a bit.
Joey and I a little
Donator.
more.
Yeah. I get a little skittish with it still.
Oh no, the needles they use for taking samples are teeny tiny compared to the platelet needles that just stay in your arms. Those are sizable.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, did I freak you out? You getting
might
lightheaded?
fall over. Yeah. So what will we do here? I think I'm falling into a little more of the aggressive category of treatment. It's why do we even care about this? We know atherosclerosis, the plaque buildup in the arteries isn't something that happens overnight. It's an insidious process. It starts very early. It can progress over time. It's hard to undo what's been done once the cholesterol has made its way into the vasculature and the plaques harden and the whole cascade of the pathophysiology of the whole thing. It's hard to undo all of that. That's why we care.
Right.
We know that it has the potential to harm. It's been a devastating disease over the course of history over the last 100 years. And so I'm a little more reluctant at this point to say, hey, let's just sit back and wait. Just knowing how devastating that the consequences can be of atherosclerosis and the buildup, of that cholesterol.
Between
those cholesterol
family
particles.
history
Yeah.
and my own capacity, I'm not afraid of taking action. As you guys know, I mean, I've radically altered my diet, increasing the exercise. I'm down to try different things. I want to live to 100. I want to be able to play with my grandkids and my great grandkids. I want to be physically capable. So I don't mind making changes.
So one change that you did make, I'm just kind of going back to some of what we do here, is the red yeast rice. So you were taking red yeast rice prior to 20 to 20.
Yes.
Literally,
So,
you were taking it, you stopped because your blood work was good. I mean, was it that black and white or
yes.
no? Because I think that
Yes, it was that black and white.
and even ApoB numbers, I would be interested because we kind of can know we can get some movement on LDL with red yeast rice.
Yeah.
But it's some of those downline things that, quite honestly, that statins have shown to benefit that we're not sure red yeast rice does.
Fair
So
enough.
it would have been interesting to be able to see a little more of those, the more cutting edge values like the ApoB, et cetera, a difference in that. Not that would have been the whole cause, but I think in 1 year, somebody going from 39 to 40,
Yeah.
I think that could have been a major change potentially.
I did. I had good numbers. And so what was working, I stopped doing. And so that's certainly an element of it. So red yeast rice. Okay. Diet. What kind of changes do I need to make there? You guys know that I keep a fairly, ketogenic paleo Mediterranean style diet is the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah.
I don't eat sugar,
Mm-hmm. I think with those diets, and again, not everybody responds in the same way. I mean, this is another thing that's so individualized, but the stock recommendation is to absolutely try to replace most of your saturated fat sources with unsaturated sources.
Okay. So saturated fat sources are things like,
we're looking at more like red meats.
okay.
So all of those, sort of red meat animal fats, which we all love, and doesn't mean you have to. Yeah, doesn't mean that you eliminate them. But again, it's like the zero sum game kind of thing. Like it's all about what you're replacing it with here.
Right.
And so unsaturated sources, try to implement a little more salmon. Not adding those things, not adding nuts, avocado, salmon. You want to start to replace some of it with those things. Even white meats that are lower in saturated fat, turkey, chicken, ground chicken, easy things to kind of mix in can definitely help.
So I can still get fajitas. I just have to get chicken instead of steak.
Switch the balance a little bit. Yeah. Nuts, seeds, avocados, olive oils.
I eat a lot of those.
Less adding butter if that's something that individuals doing. Those are not easy things, but again, stock recommendations that can make a difference. We know that dietary patterns that are low in fiber have the tendency to, see, lipid panels that look similarly to this. So I would say eating at least 30 grams of fiber from added fruits and vegetables can absolutely help. You're not eating a ton of refined carbohydrates, the pastries, sweets, breakfast cereals.
None.
But that's another huge example that will make a difference for people.
Yeah.
Lifestyle factors. We know that excess body fat is something that can make a difference.
I'm working on it.
Not saying that you have a multitude of body fat that you need to lose, but it's, taking a look at someone's waist circumference beyond just the scale can help shed light on that. You can get a better look at, visceral adiposity, central adiposity, on the midsection tends to be a little more associated with these adverse cardiac events. I guess not specifically elevated LDL cholesterol and ApoB, but we know that trying to reduce that can help, via, caloric restriction, and, exercise and such. For others, smoking and nicotine's a stock recommendation. We don't have to go, into that.
I don't do that.
But yeah, family history is huge. Not only, if somebody in your family has had high cholesterol, but what you have a laundry list of individuals who have had stroke, heart attack, all of those things might warrant your practitioner to treat a little more aggressively.
Fair enough.
Definitely.
Some more minor factors too, especially when we're looking at calling like the more cutting edge numbers like the ApoB. They did a study. They just looked at, again, some of this is chicken or egg, but 7,381 participants, 18 to 75 in China, less than 6 hours of sleep is associated with higher ApoB versus even 7 or 8. Just again, looking at some of these things, and also coffee. Over 2 cups a day is linked to higher. Now, we've talked about caffeine before. There's other benefits to it. And there's also, what is 2 cups?
Yeah.
Okay. I have 2 cups of, all right, I think we know that. So that would take some more digging. But in general, it's just, again, a little more about moderation, quality of sleep, that can have effects, again, at a lower level than the things Dante had mentioned. But just as an aside.
All right.
I think it's important, again, to highlight what we kind of talked about at the beginning here, and maybe where you'll see some of these treatments start to change. Again, the ASCVD, the atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk calculator, is looking at what risk are you at in the next 10 years. Right. And so you're 40. Yes, I'm about 30. Joey's 40. Like we're sorry, guys.
Those barriers.
You outed us.
40.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
The likelihood of you having an event at that age is low. Right. Regardless. So why do we care that much what your risk is over the next 10 years? Because we need to look at 20 years, 30 years.
Because I don't care about the next 10 years. I care about the next 40 years.
I mean, if you're like, dude, I'm cool, I'll check out after 50. Like we get as much done in this life before 50, and then whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if we're on generation health, trying to live long and maximize our health for a generation and the next generation and all these sorts of things, then we're talking like what's our risk into our 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so that's when this more aggressive treatment, starting a statin earlier, maybe it's a PCSK9 inhibitor, who knows, some of these newer drugs, it changes the conversation drastically, because the earlier that you can get these levels in check is just one box to check that can lower your risk for these downline events. Again, because yes, the next 10 years is important, and it's great that our risk over the next 10 years is low. But when you start looking beyond that, that's where the real work is done. And I think that, and I'm admittedly taking a lot of this from Dr. Peter Attia, who he's talked with tons of cholesterol experts. He knows a crap ton about cholesterol. He treats most of his patients a little bit differently than this current 10-year ASCVD risk calculator. And he highlights a lot of this in his book that he just put out. And it's more of this preventative outlook versus like, let's just worry about the next 10 years and we're good, and we'll figure out we're all going to be sick in our 70s and 80s anyway. Right. Kind of, not saying that is the mentality, but that's kind of what you're saying by not aggressively doing something at this point now. And so he'll go as far as saying, I'm looking to get my own LDL cholesterol, my own ApoB to infantile levels. Yeah. And so for a lot of people that just doesn't register, it's unheard of, it's too aggressive. Cholesterol is important for all these processes in our body. Well, if as a basically his way of looking at it is, if you are a child, if you're an infant, if you're very young, that's arguably the most important time for growth and development. And we know at that age, you have very, very, very low ApoB. So why can't we extrapolate this into, individuals
later
in their 40s and 50s?
Yeah,
we need to get people, not that we need to get everybody to that number, but we need to push this way lower than where the current cut points are. And we need to do so, quick.
Aggressively. All right.
So it's just, I think cholesterol is something that's going to come up time and time again on this show. Yep. With questions and with kind of now the interest that I've taken in it. And then also, man, I sense that there's a shift in how early doctors are going to start treating to numbers differently. Yeah.
I'm going to take this stuff seriously. I'm going to start taking action, and I'll get some more red yeast rice and cut out the saturated fat, keep weightlifting, and hopefully we'll check back.
It's a nice in between. Obviously, things like red yeast rice and bergamot, like I said before, do not have the studies showing the overall long-term benefits.
Right.
But at least if there are just people for various reasons, some of them good, some of them, controversial, that they're not going to start a statin, they're not going to take a statin for whatever that reason may be, if it's personal, there are at least, I'm not saying superior or equal, I'm saying some options in the middle ground that we have seen at least move some of these numbers, and over time can hopefully unpack even more of what they do or are not doing as we kind of move forward.
Fair enough.
We actually, and additionally, we won't go crazy in depth with this, but you mentioned the pending LP(a) blood work.
Yes.
And so maybe we'll talk about that more
once
we get it back.
Yeah.
But this is another lipoprotein measurement that is something that when you're looking at LDL cholesterol, ApoB, VL, DL, these other measures, those we have control over for the most part with dietary interventions, with statins, with supplements. We can move the needle on those. With LP(a), this is something that is primarily genetic. And so as of right now, there are some clinical trials going on, but there's no way to really reduce your LP(a). And so then what do we actually do with that information? So if let's just say in theory, Tyler, you get your LP(a) back and that is also a little bit elevated.
Yep.
That would just make somebody like Peter Attia, who just lives in that world a little more,
right,
would even make him more apt to treating what he can treat with statins, with any sort of cholesterol lowering agents, because again, that's the lever that we can pull at this time to lower your risk in the long term, because we just don't have a whole lot that we can do with LP(a) at this time.
That makes sense.
So it's just they're kind of on two distinct tracks, if you think of it that way. The ApoB, which are basically the surface proteins on all of these low density lipoproteins, those are what we have control over. LP(a) is a little bit more of much more of a genetic hereditary issue. Typically what you see, in somebody who's 4 or 5 years old is what you'll see. The level will be pretty much the same when they're 55. That's generally what they're showing. And so it's very important to then, yes, we looked at a few levels or a few results on your blood work, but this is a much bigger picture, and we're learning about new things to test and new things to factor into, these risks, these risk scores. There's even calculators that will factor in LP(a) to the current ASCVD risk calculator. So maybe if in theory that is a little more elevated, that might bump somebody to the treatment cut point.
Fair enough.
So as you're seeing, there's probably people think statins are being overused and they're all over the place as it is. Well, I think it's going to be
even higher.
I do.
Yeah.
And and I think at this point for good reason.
Yeah.
Truly.